Warriors get it done in a game that yesterday I called a must-win game. I thought it was. And when was it? It was start of that third quarter. I think it was Devin Vassell hit that corner three ball off the Sohan push, and it was a 10-point Spurs lead. Kerr called a timeout. You may go back and circle that as a turning point late in the season where it could have really went the other way. If they didn't respond out of that Steve Kerr timeout, and we're having a different conversation today, again, I just think, never mind the standings, the morale and the belief from the team would have taken a significant hit. Now, let's talk about Wemby first because it's fun, right? And I still remain skeptical of his durability and his ability to play heavy minutes at that size. Clearly, he's not a heavy dude, but I mean, he's still a giant, right? But you got to give credit where credit is due. And it's one thing to be super big and be able to move well. It's a whole nother thing to be good at basketball. And Wembanyama is all of the above, right? And I think what's most impressive is in pick and roll coverage, both ways, really. Offensively, the pick and pop, you can't really recover to him. And, he can make every pass to the corner and he just has a really good feel. But defensively, he plays center field so well. He can take away the lob and he can still take away the mid-ranger. Now, bringing him up above the three-point line, I think is going to be interesting. And does he even have to? He can like stay and drop and still contest threes. Like there's just some freakish stuff that you can't teach. But again, his feel, I don't know if it's a French thing because it's kind of similar to Rudy, how Rudy is always able to play right in between, take away both things. And Wemby has that trait as well as a whole bag offensively, right? So Wembanyama is very impressive. And, I think what I've seen the difference from when I saw him at Summer League, he's playing with a wider base, which is keeping him on balance in the paint, right? And initially I was like, dude, does he have bad hands? And it was like, oh, and he doesn't have bad hands, but he doesn't have strong hands yet. And you can see the ball kind of get jarred loose from him at times. So I'm sure the strength will come in time. But how about our guy, Trace Jackson Davis? Not quite the hype as Wemby, right? But man, that was real Blake Griffin-y, what he did to him at the end of that game, right? It's funny because we had just talked about him studying Blake Griffin in order to defend Giannis last week, right? He has those huge blocks on Giannis, and now he posterizes the potential new face of the league at the end of that game. And I think the context of it matters because you saw him in a pick and roll with Chris Paul and he bobbled the ball, right? He kind of did the receiver thing where he tried to look up field before he had the ball and he was worried about Wemby rotating over. And then there was another possession where he caught it right under the basket in the dunker spot and he backed it out. He didn't want to challenge Wemby and we were forced into a difficult shot. And so for him to do that with 90 seconds left in the game, it's still an 8-point game. And he put the body on him. And that's one thing you see with Trace. We've talked about his ability defensively to absorb contact and stay vertical. You see it offensively where he can take contact, he can fend off a shot blocker, and his hands are so big and strong because Wemby got a piece of that. If you look at the replay, he gets a piece of it and he's still able to throw the ball in the hoop and finish that, man. And so he has officially become, I think, a big part of this. And you're seeing he and Chris Paul, their rapport, their chemistry is growing with each minute they spend on the floor in that pick and roll game. Speaking of which, CP, vintage performance from him, right? We needed that. CP carried us in that game when we were struggling in that first half. We started off 5 of 5. And I think what you can see is the difference with Dario in that pick and pop game is when he has a vertical spacer and a lob threat, it actually opens up Chris's offense more, right? Because he turns the corner, gets further downhill, he can get to that nail, right? And you see him use the fake pass. So it actually, I think, helps him more to have the lob threat rather than the pick and pop guy. And you're seeing, I think team wide, they recognize offensively, hey, we've all got to be more aggressive here without Steph. And you saw that from Wiggins. What do you know? You put him in a ball screen action. And I think that's been laying dormant for a while. And you can't point to anybody else but the coaching staff as not putting him in more pick and rolls and just letting him get downhill because you see how comfortable he is in doing so. The other thing that I had pointed out, I think last week, was I said, hey, let Pod shoot some more threes, because people were saying like he's not a shooter, he doesn't space the floor. I think with more volume, Podziemski will prove to be a good three-point shooter, and you saw him with a quicker trigger last night. What did he have? 3 in that first half, and what do you know? He's knocking them down. Now, let's talk about this little bit of controversy. I don't want to make it more than it is, because I think these things happen more than people realize, but the Warriors have a bigger microscope on them, and it was kind of out of character for Andrew Wiggins. I think that's what made it more interesting. I think a lot of guys, that happens all the time, and people shrug it off, but you don't get that type of reaction from Andrew Wiggins. The first thing that I will say is, if Wiggins was running the floor with the type of urgency that he should have, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? We wouldn't. 2, I have noticed that Podziemski hunts Steph, Clay, and Draymond a lot, right? To a fault at times. However, when you look at the past treatment of young players on this Warriors team, can you blame them, right? It's kind of been like, hey, buy in and do what the vets want, or you're not going to play. So I think that there is an element of that. But that being said, and again, I don't want to make it this, but give me Podziemski every day of the week. I heard people on Twitter saying, oh, Pods, he better fall back. That rookie, he about to get the pool treatment. If it were to go down, my money's on the rookie. And it never has to be that. I think that that's the cool thing about it is I think it's a good thing overall. I do. I like, yes, I get it. There's a pecking order, and as a younger player, maybe you don't want to do that, but we've seen him. This is who he's been consistently. You heard that he barked at Draymond the first week of training camp. We need this type of vocal leadership. Draymond ain't gonna be here forever. Draymond looked cooked last night, man. I'm gonna just let him live, because again, what they're asking Draymond to do at that 5 spot is a lot. But Draymond, I don't say this often, but it was almost a blessing that he was in foul trouble, because for that matchup last night, you saw it was much better with Trace and CP in that operation. But what I'm saying, I guess what I'll say is, it's like Wiggins, like, okay, cool, you can bring that energy to your rookie. Bring that energy every night, then, fam. Like, where is that? Like, dude, every like 4th game, you're like, oh, Wiggs is playing hard. Oh, so when I say give me Podziemski, I mean I'll take his competitive spirit and how hard he plays over the maybe Wiggins wants to play basketball attitude that we have come to know. And I get it doesn't have to be a he or him thing, and I think ultimately it'll be a good thing. We should want this type of leadership from Podziemski. That's how I see it. And I get the optics of it. But hey, maybe he can pull that out of Wiggins. Keep Wiggins aggressive. Challenge him. So I don't think it's a big deal, but that's my take on that incident. 2 more points to make about the game. Again, there's a full breakdown on my Patreon right now. I think it's about 14 minutes. Kuminga, I had brought up that this was a kind of not difficult, but a matchup for him where there's a lot of length. And then now with Wembanyama in there, he's not going to get all the way to the rim like he likes to. What I would like to bring up is, by now, I think everybody has noticed the change in refereeing since the All-Star break, right? Bill Simmons had a big podcast about it, and I think we all noticed it. Like, oh, they're not calling as many touch fouls, right? And I think we all like it. Does that hurt Kuminga's game, right? Because he has got to the line so prolifically this year, and you're seeing him not get that whistle when he gets downhill. And what I don't like is don't be so demonstrative about it. He's kind of following in Draymond's footsteps in that way of just throwing his hands up, sticking his chest out and barking towards the refs. I don't think that's going to get you anywhere with it. I understand the frustration and adjusting with it, but you talk about this, I guess, rule change, who it helps, who it doesn't help, right? And you think about Kuminga's offensive game, it hasn't helped him. Now, maybe he can get more physically defensively and, give him time to adjust. But right now, it's kind of hurt him. He's not getting the whistle that he was accustomed to in the first half of this season. But I thought that he had an important performance last night, because ultimately, when it comes playoff time, fingers crossed, playoff time this year for the Warriors, the question is going to be like, are they going to guard him out at the 3-point line? Or are they going to give him the Tony Allen treatment? And I don't think that teams will be able to do that. I think teams will try it, and I think they're going to find out that Kuminga is too confident of a player to do that to. You know, his form, his shot, it ain't pretty, but it ain't broken either. It's a set shot, right? It's not on the move. And, you know, he was struggling in this game, and he came down and he just took a rhythm three, like a not transition, but an early in the clock, walk up, no one else touched the ball three, and cashed it. And I was like, dude, that is a confident shot. Like, he had a couple turnovers. He had got roofed at the rim, a travel call. It was like, for him to just walk down and take that, he has superstar confidence. And that's not something that you either have that or you don't, right? And so I think that that's a key factor in it. And I think that, you know, eventually when you see him playing heavy minutes in a playoff series, a team's going to try to do that, and I think he's going to make them pay. And then you saw him hit another big three in the second half of the game last night. And so I just wanted to point that out, because I think that if he's not going to be getting these whistles downhill, you know, he may have to take more jump shots. And the midi is there already, right? But the three, he's kind of got to be squared up, and it's got to be ideal situation. But most importantly, he wants it, and his confidence is unwavering. I think that's the most important part about it. Now, they split this series. Dallas Wednesday, I expect it's going to be intense, because they're one of these teams clumped up trying to stay out of the play-in. Luka always kills us, right? Derek Lively Jr., they've got size now with Gafford. It's going to be a difficult matchup. It's going to be a difficult matchup, and it's going to take great three-point shooting and the defense being even more connected than here's what I'll finish this up with. The weak side defense. I want you to watch for this, because at times I go through blaming players, and like Moody only had 12 minutes. Moody it's a team-wide thing, but Moody has an issue splitting the difference on the weak side. You know what I mean? The Andre, the Draymond, where it's like you're kind of helping, but you're also able to get back out. And Moody just overcommits too early to dropping in, and then he can't get back out. But it's a team-wide issue. And I want you to watch for this, because out of the pick and roll coverage last night, the two weak side defenders literally stack on each other in the middle of the paint. There's not one that's like with one foot in the paint and one out to the three-point line. They stack on top of each other where they could it's like they're setting a stack. They could touch each other. It makes no sense whatsoever. That has to be on the coaching staff. Schematically, principle-wise, scheme-wise, defensively, I don't like our pick and roll coverage. This overcompensating for a lack of size. Like, hello, it's the three ball era. If we're going to give up some rolls and some dunks at the basket, so be it. We cannot keep over helping from the weak side. And the other thing that I'd point out to is, because you saw them, I think they doubled Sohan a couple times on the post, right? Like, listen, the 90% of this generation of player, even if they're 6'8", 6'9", they don't have a back to the basket game. They're not looking to post up guys. So let's stop selling out to the paint and then acting flabbergasted that teams are shooting 50% from the three-point line on us. If it's just a principle and a philosophy, then it's not going to change, because that's what they believe in. But I think we're all sitting at home being like, dude, this is beyond ignorant in the way the game is being played today. So I think in Dallas, they need to continue to lean on the pick and roll. Trace, what did he have? 13, 10, and 5 in 26 minutes. Lean on that Chris Paul, Trace Jackson pick and roll, as well as I want to see more pick and rolls with the ball in Andrew Wiggins' hands. Just let him get downhill and kind of force feed his aggression that way. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.